I went into my drawing program, which by the way is CorelDRAW. I use CorelDRAW because I'm used to it, not because it's the best or the most popular, but like I said, I'm used to it, so that's what I use. Anyway, I drew out what I was talking about at the end of the last episode, when I was talking about I had to turn down a tenon, and how that was going to make things a little bit more difficult. And I thought it could well be that there's people didn't know what I was talking about when I said a tenon, because usually you think of a tenon as a square thing. Well, apparently they can be round as well. Those turquoise-colored blocks, well, they represent the blanks. Well, that should be pretty obvious. Across the top of the page, I've got the bushings to scale, and then I've drawn them again on the mandrel. And that little yellow square, well, that's just to give me an idea of how big is 3/16 of an inch, so that when I draw the tenon on the blank, I can have an accurate idea of where to draw it. Okay, let's assume now that I've turned those blanks down. Now, of course, they're not going to be turquoise after I turn them down, but anyway, this is what they'll look like when I get them down before I turn the tenon. And now I can use that little yellow box as a template, and I know where to draw the tenon. Now, this is what they mean when they say they want a tenon 3/16 of an inch long. Now, I think they could have designed this kit differently so that I didn't have to do that, but this is the way they did it, and it sort of makes it fun. And when I press everything together, you'll see why there has to be a tenon. The little decorative ring that's in the center of the pen has to be pressed onto that tenon, rather than pressed on the brass tube. Now I know I could probably go down about another 32nd of an inch with a scraper, but I think I'm going to use the sandpaper to do that, because right here is supposed to be the same diameter as the center part of that bushing, and I don't want to accidentally make it too small, so I'm going to do the rest with the sandpaper now. Well, maybe I could give it just a bit of a touch right here. But usually when I do that, that's when things go wrong. Now the tenon is supposed to be 3/16 of an inch in from this end. So try and get this set to 3/16. That's pretty close. Alright, let's see if we can just mark it somehow here. Now I realize what most guys would do at this point is they'd probably take their parting tool and they'd take this down with the parting tool. But I'm not very steady, and I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have a precision lathe that'll do that for me. Now this is the little ring that has to go over that tenon. And I just want to make good and sure that I'm not going to make that tenon too long. I think it's going to work okay. Now this little tenon here, it has to be turned down to this diameter right here. Like so. Okay, so I think the smartest thing for me to do now is just lock this in place. And then turn this down until it just fits in there. Makes sense to me anyway. Now what I want to do here is I want to try and rig up some kind of a dust collection system here so that the fine powdery dust isn't going to be floating around here. I know the chips, I don't care about the chips. I just don't want that fine powdery stuff floating around and getting into this lathe, because this lathe is very greasy and it'll just stick to it and it'll be very hard to clean up. Well, it's taken several tries here, probably a dozen. But I think I finally got it. Let's go test it out on the ring. By the way, this worked good. Perfect fit. Now I want to make sure I get these on the right way again. No, actually, that wasn't necessarily true. It doesn't matter which way I get them on now. I've already turned them down as much as I'm gonna. The little bit of sanding that I'm about to do isn't gonna make any difference. Now, one thing's for sure. I don't want to be tightening this up real tight, because I could collapse that little tenon. There's not a whole lot of wood there. It's a good thing it's been reinforced with the cactus juice. Now before I turned that little tenon, I sanded everything down up to 600 grit. Feels pretty good, except for little micro scratches here and there I can see. I'm going to use 800 and 1000 now. And then after that we can polish it, and I guess it'll be ready to press together. Now this is silky smooth here. I don't know if you can see it, but look at the little interesting pattern there is right there in the grain. Yeah, wonder what caused that. Now what I have found, when I'm doing wood that has been stabilized with cactus juice, as this has, it's a good idea not to run it real fast so that a lot of heat builds up. I don't know if it melts the cactus juice or what, but it does a better job if you can sort of keep it cool. Another thing I do is I start out the lathe really slow, and then I just sort of sop it on and then quickly wipe off the excess and then polish. Well, you'll see. That was a bit of a shine already. I'm going to do that probably 3-4 more times. Well, you know, for 60-year-old wood that's been sitting outside in a lake and in the bush, it survived pretty good.